His pastime.
How does he like playing in the snow?
He liked it, but the snow got too high.
Oh,
So
I
he
was
couldn't
saying.
walk.
And
really?
snow is not something different for him.
Well, we didn't really play in it the
Too
year
much.
before. But this year we found out that our backyard, we can't stand our backyard in the summertime. But in the winter, it's awesome.
Oh,
It's just
yeah.
pretty
Yeah, that's a
silly.
good sleigh ride.
And in the summertime, my friend Sonia, who's Ryan's
Doctor,
pediatrician,
yeah.
she has a really flat, big backyard, so you can run and whatever. And then
That's good that you're close to
she
her.
said, "We'll come over to your house in the winter, and you come over to our house in the summer."
Yeah,
So
that
it's
makes it
switching.
nice.
Yeah, she really liked it. We had a lot.
You want me to put long pants on?
I mean, I don't think your butt.
No, I won't see you.
No, your waist up,
Okay.
so you're fine. Do you need him to talk, or are you good? Huh? You're ready?
I am recording.
So we can start?
How about that?
Hi.
Glad
How
you
you-
came over.
Yeah, Pat wants you to introduce yourselves.
Okay.
So say who you
Okay,
are.
I'm Miriam Jean Kelling.
Alvin Henry Kellings.
To give you an elbow in it.
Oh,
What were your birthdays?
My birthday is November 13th, 1926.
June 11th, 1926.
You guys are the
A
same
star was
age.
born.
Where were you born?
I was born in St. Louis.
St. Louis
St. Louis.
County.
Well, you guys never moved, huh?
No,
Okay.
Yeah, I was born in South County.
yes, but it's still St. Louis.
How was your childhood different from kids today?
Mine, kids,
Oh.
kids have everything today. I mean, when I stop and think of the toys they have, the computers and, everything. I had a bike. I wasn't deprived in any way. I mean, I had everything I needed. But I had a bike and I had a little kitchen set with a stove that Linda still has in her basement, a little electric stove that the boy across the street and we always played together. And I would cook apples.
Yeah.
And we'd have apples. And then sometimes we'd do pieces of bread with sugar and cinnamon on them in the oven.
You were really cooking, or were you pretending?
Really cooking,
cooking?
yeah.
No kidding.
And it's got
little kid.
electric still
Oh,
got
it did?
still got
Wow.
hot, but the wire is so
No
dry
wonder you're
that
such a good cook now.
yeah, that's right.
Dirty, dirty.
But like I said, I had a bike, but other than that, I didn't have all the things like now they have computers and all this jazz, and if they don't have it, they're really deprived.
She had it good.
You didn't have it so good?
Oh, I went to when,
He had to
when we
work.
was kids, we had to work on a farm. We had a truck garden, and even when we went to school, the kids today they don't have anything to do really except play and all that. We'd come home from school, then we'd get undressed. We had to put our old clothes on, go out and work on the farm. Oh, like even in the wintertime, like October, November, we'd have digging sweet potatoes. We'd dig that until dark. Then we'd first go in and take our shower and get
Bath,
dressed,
you didn't have a shower.
take a bath, and then first do our homework.
Then do your homework.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, had to clean the equipment. My dad was so particular. He was.
How many siblings did you have?
I only had one brother, 14 years older than I am.
Wow.
Yeah, and
And
he's
I have an
deceased.
identical twin.
Right.
That's why we got in so much trouble. And there was 5 of us, 2 girls and 3 boys.
And where did you and your brother fit in the midst of the 5?
I was the youngest, and Cal he was 5 minutes older than I was.
No, I meant between your siblings.
Oh, Walter was, Walter was the oldest. I mean, Lucy was the oldest, then Walter, my brother, and then my sister,
That one.
then Evelyn's her name. Lucy was the other sister. And then Calvin and
then you. He
You were
was
the babies.
He's
I
the
was
baby.
the baby.
He is the baby.
Talk a little, Grandpa, about being a twin and what it was like to have a twin brother,
Oh,
and like how you're different from each other and how you're similar to each other.
Well, actually, it's so good to be a twin, really, because you always have, in some ways, because in some, before when you get in trouble, they wouldn't know which one it was, and we both get corrected.
Oh,
Even in school, we had problems. And over in the, when he went in the service, man, that almost, they wouldn't take me. We both had our A on our card inducted in the service because we volunteered in World War II. And we wanted to go in the Navy. And they wouldn't keep us together because that time the Sullivan boys, I think it was the Sullivans,
Yeah, that's right.
they all got killed, so they wouldn't keep us together. So we went in the Army, and we had it, and I was getting inducted, and when we was walking down to be inducted, and they called my name out. Because when I was real small, I had double pneumonia, and they wouldn't take me. So they let both of us go home, and then they drafted him. And boy, I'll tell you
Didn't
what.
he have to go back the next day?
He had to go back in the service. And I wrote to Omaha and told him I'd give all my insurance away. I wouldn't take my insurance if they take me. Because limited service, they wouldn't take me because they quit limited service.
it was like taking away your best friend.
Well,
I'll tell
that's
you,
the first time they were ever
I
separated.
came home and I cried like a baby. I'm not kidding you. I just couldn't take it. Being separated when you're it's so different being a twin. Because when Cal was wounded that day the same day, I was real sick. It's a miracle. The day he broke his glasses, I broke my glasses that same day.
Those things are just ironic.
It's just I don't know what it is, but it's just terrible.
Are you considered identical twins? I mean,
Yes.
We identical.
when I see the two of you together, I would.
Donna, what's your
My-
hand?
Oh, my hand getting in the way?
Put the script up there. Yeah.
Because if I see the two of you together, I would say you were identical, but I didn't, because I know
Yeah.
there's like, they actually.
Well,
Characteristics
remember
difference,
remember
yeah.
our anniversary?
Uh-huh.
My haircut lady came there, and I hugged her when she came there, and when they left, she gave one of them a hug, and she didn't know if she gave my brother a hug, and she asked me, did I give you a hug? And I was kidding her. I said, no, you didn't give me a hug. She said, oh, don't tell me I hugged your brother.
That's funny.
When they got out in the car, she said to her husband, oh my gosh, she said, I don't know if I hugged Al or if I hugged his brother Calvin. She said, I guess I ought to go back. And he said, that would be more embarrassing.
Do you guys both have glasses? Mm-hmm. Did you get glasses at the same time?
Yes.
Did you really?
And really, let me interject here.
That's okay.
Even today yet, they are very, very similar. It isn't at all unusual for us to go someplace and, be going to
Yeah.
meet, and maybe they'll wear similar shirts.
Really?
When his
Oh.
mother was in the nursing home, they would always mistake us, because
Yeah.
Calvin and Norma, his wife, and Al and I went every day to see his mother. And we would be going up in the elevator, and Calvin would be coming down, and the nurses would make comments, didn't I just see you?
Right.
But it was amazing. They had shirts alike, just, how a coincidence, you pick out something that
Yeah.
you like.
Do you ever,
And-
is it ever like conscious in your head that your brother's doing something, or is it
Oh,
just,
yes. A lot of times you do the same thing.
I mean, do you do something and then call your brother and say, hey, I just had this thought,
I never
blah,
did
blah,
that.
blah. Do you ever
Never did
check?
that.
No?
But when Cal was in the hospital, I was going up to see him, going up in the elevator, and a lady come in the back of the elevator, and I didn't know who she was, but she was in the back of me, and she pinched me on the rear end. And I told her, I'll give you 15 minutes to stop that. And I looked at her, looked back at her, and she said, oh my goodness, he's got a twin brother.
So it must have been his doctor.
And
That happened
once
not
in a
too
while,
long
like
ago.
when Calvin has something to do and she's there, she'd say, remember me? I said, I won't forget you.
That's funny.
It has its points and not,
Yeah,
I mean,
good points and bad points.
good points and bad points, because like when we built our house on Pacific, we had an architect meet us. He didn't know where we was, so we had to meet him at Hardee's. And Miriam and I come there, and he come in and he saw me with Linda and Miriam, and they thought, man, Cal must be with a different woman. I told her, I said, I bet they think I'm with a different woman. And they start walking out. So I said, well, I said, sir, I bet you think I'm Cal's twin brother. And he said, I told you he had a twin. So
That's funny. Did you, as kids or even as adults, did you play tricks on anyone because of the twin?
yes, we did. And we both got spankings. That's the bad part about being a twin.
Yeah.
Because they didn't know it. And back then, you know, we would bicker amongst ourselves. And I could talk about him and but he could talk about me. But if anybody else talked about him or something, it really hurts me. And even today,
Even to this day. Yeah.
even today, I tell her, don't talk about him. But back then, if we get in trouble, we had the steps coming down from our upstairs down into the kitchen. And we had just regular old steps. And we'd be sitting there, you know, and my dad would spank us, or my mom, and we had to sit on the steps. And he said, now don't you move. Well, we was too stupid then. I'd go make a face at him or something, or hit him like that. He said, he hit me, and we'd both get it again.
Oh, no.
Then he hit me or something. I'd say, now he's hitting me. We'd get it again. Oh,
That wouldn't have been very smart.
no, it was.
Can you think of something that you did that was like the worst thing you did as a prank? Or
Uh,
Yeah,
not
tell
to my
me
twin
this.
brother, but I told a kid one time he was bragging. Never will forget him. We had a sweet potato shed with a lean-to on it, and he always said he could out-jump us. So we had a manure pile in the back of our sweet potato shed, and right behind that was the hotbeds. We would jump all the time because it was all dry manure, real soft, and we would jump and sit in the manure. And boy, we'd bounce off, you know. Well, this kid said, I can out-jump you. I said, you got to run hard. I said, well, he runs so fast and jumped and flew over the manure pile into the hotbeds and broke through the stuff
The
and
glass.
got cut on his leg. Oh. Boy, I'll tell you what, but he
In
was...
trouble?
Yeah, we got in trouble. We used to do crazy stuff like we used to call them city slickers. They come from St. Louis out to the farm. And we had, I'll never forget my cousins. They thought who the heck they were, you know. She was always
Bragging.
really funny, you know. And we always said they're city slickers because they thought used to call us once in a while Hoosiers, you know, because we was out in the county. Well, one time we put, my dad had a bunch of bushel boxes stacked up. And Cal and I said, we'll raise them sometime. So we stretched the string on a little rope, about a foot and a half high, from the bushel boxes to the sweet potato shed. And we was running through there, and I said, okay, I bet you can't catch us. Well, we knew where the rope was, Cal and I. We run around her, and we jumped that sucker over that rope. We jumped over that sucker, and they tripped, and all the bushel boxes come on top of them. We used to do crazy things like that.
And get in trouble.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
one more thing on that. Did you ever like put Cal in your place and try to have him act as you, or vice versa? Any of that like?
We
replacing?
did. I can't even remember after all, I'm 83, but I can't remember some of the things we used to do, crazy things we used to do.
They
Did you
used.
ever
they-
mistake Cal for Al?
I was just going to say they used to try and play tricks on.
we used to
on
try it.
Me, you know, because when we were dating, I lived in University City, which was like about 17 miles from where Al and Calvin lived, and we would come down to visit my brother,
Yeah.
who lived close to his mom and dad's farm. And I'd spend the weekend down there because my brother was in service, and my sister-in-law didn't drive, and she had the two little children. So I'd come down and take them to the grocery store and stuff like that. Well, they decided they were going to play a trick on me. And when we were going to be doing something, I don't even remember what it was, where we were going, but they tried to trick me. Well, they didn't realize they wore initial rings. And the little black onyx rings with their initials in the middle. And I saw in there, and we spoiled their fun, but we did a lot of silly things like that
Did your
together.
parents get you the initial rings?
No, our school rings.
Oh, they were your school rings. With
School
initials.
rings.
Okay.
But we would mostly do things to get in trouble with ourselves or fool other people. But like one time when we buried that chicken, I threw
Yeah,
a rock
tell them
through
that. That's a funny story.
We, like say, had a manure pile alongside of the pig pen. Well, Cal and I was going there through there one time with our bicycles, and I was in front with the racer bicycle I was telling you about, and he had a little smaller 28, 26, and Dad had two mules, and he took one out there, and the other one couldn't walk real good. And when Cal was riding, he hit that mule, went underneath the mule, and man, we got it there from my dad, because I knew he had that slow one. So then we saw this chicken run through the yard. After we got the spanking, we was too dumb. So we saw a chicken run through the yard, and I threw a rock. And honest to gosh, that chicken ran into that rock. I'm not kidding you, because that chicken was going. And I said, "Oh shoot!" I said, "I killed that chicken." And I said, "Oh well, I'll tell you what." I said, "We'll bury that thing." And I said, "I'll be the priest." I said, "We'll play like we're Catholic." I said, "So a chicken, you put the head under the wing. Do you know that? And you could lay it on its back, and it would stay there." Well, this is dead. I said, "Well, Cal, this is dead." So I said, we'll put it like it's still alive, so we'll bury that sucker." So we dug a manure pile, and it was real soft, and it was rotten like, and we buried that sucker. And about half an hour later, Dad came in and said, "Who buried a live chicken?" And we said, "We didn't." And we wasn't lying. We thought we killed it. We thought it was dead. Well, Dad walked through there, that chicken had his legs going like this.
In the manure pile?
In the manure pile, and all Dad was saw something going like this, and it was the chicken's legs. And man, I think that's the worst thing I ever. We really got a spanking.
You deserved it
So you're
then.
trying to hide the evidence.
Right, they
Hide
did.
the evidence.
Yeah. It didn't work very well, though.
What were your first jobs? Did you work?
Yes, when I was in high school, I got a job first as a babysitter and a house cleaner. I used to have to straighten up the house, not do any heavy cleaning, but do dishes and straighten up the house for this lady that lived about 3 blocks from where I lived when I was growing up, and then take care of her little girl. And I got $7 a week, and I went every day after school, and then on Saturday I had to go till noon. That was my first job. And then my first job where I actually punched a clock and that was I worked at Union Electric, I mean not Union Electric, Wagner Electric. And I worked in the parts department where I kept track of all the parts, like all the screws and nuts and bolts that they put in all these things that they made.
No wonder she can count good.
Yeah, that's where I learned to count. And I worked there. But then after that, up until, from the time I graduated until we got married, I worked as secretary to the principal at the Hanley Junior High School in University City. So I worked there.
What about you, Grandpa?
Well, like I say, we worked on a farm.
Yeah.
And then one year it was real dry, so my twin brother and I, the guy was hauling coal, so he wanted Cal and I working, shoveling coal and all that. And we went to work when we was in high school. And we could drive and all, because we used to drive when we was even little, before we was 16, had driver's license. We would drive the truck while they was loading it, and we went to work for a coal company. And my twin brother, you talk about getting mixed up, we was wheeling coal. The guy drove it there and left the truck there and dumped the coal, and we had to shovel that coal, and this was stoker coal. And we had to shovel that coal, come up and wheel it, and then push it downstairs, and one of us would be downstairs raking it.
Into the coal bin.
Into the coal bin downstairs, and the other one would be wheeling back and forth. The other one was down there dumping it in a chute, and then he'd be raking it down. Well, the guy called the boss, and when the boss came, he said, he said, "I'll tell you one thing," he said, "you got the fastest kid working here that I ever did see in my life." And then I came out.
He didn't know they were
He
twins.
didn't know we were switching. So He said, well, there was
You
two.
thought you were running back and forth.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then he came and when we was leaving, he said, "Oh," he said, "I thought that kid was so fast. I thought you were so fast. Why didn't you tell me you had a twin brother down there?" I said, "You never asked." I said, "I didn't know that." But he said, "That was the fastest guy I ever seen in my life."
That's good stuff. That's good.
And then what about with the dump truck on the coal? Yeah.
Oh, we was shoveling coal but my dad needed coal. And so we worked up there. So we took our dump truck and we backed into like the switch come through there, and it was right between the switch and the main line.
For the
And
railroad.
We backed to the railroad.
Yeah.
And we backed our dump truck in between there, and part of it was hanging over. And we said one of us would shovel in the what's for a train, and then the other one would switch over and shovel the coal out, lump coal. And I'll tell you, one time we heard a whistle blow. And that truck, you couldn't hardly start that truck. You had a crank in the front. And I'm not kidding you. Cal was driving, and I jumped out. He was downstairs, and I jumped out. And honest to gosh, I can't believe it to this day. I got a hold of that crank, and I spun that son of a gun around, and he was shaking so much. When he pulled up, his leg was shaking. It just jumped forward, and that train went by and just missed us. Otherwise, we'd have got killed. But my dad, and we got home, and my dad gave us a spanking for doing that, driving that close.
So silly.
He was strict. Now today, if I told my dad I'd sue him for spanking us, like they do today, I mean, kids don't realize really what it is really to work hard when you're a kid.
Well, now your dad didn't abuse you.
Oh,
but,
he never abused us.
But I'll
we
say
got our
this.
spankings and we deserved it.
But I'll say this: when you were getting the spankings, if today the boys or girls were getting spanked like that, they'd probably be.
Yeah, we would get spanked on the
Arrested.
legs and never did hit us in the face.
Child abuse.
That is a whole different world
It is.
from when we were kids. How did you two meet?
I can
remember
answer
how
that.
it was. You was at your brother's house.
Yeah.
And
I
I was
said
working
earlier.
on a farm picking tomatoes.
You know what Grandma talked about?
Pardon me?
Grandma said she wanted to answer that one.
Okay, go ahead. You answer it.
See, you can tell who talks the
I wanna
most in the
I
family.
want to see
doesn't
how
it?
good your memory is. Honey.
Okay. Like I said, I lived 17 miles from him. My brother was in the service, and we would come down on weekends to my sister-in-law's house. And my sister-in-law and his sister lived back to back in homes in a little subdivision. And they were good friends. So when I came down one night, my sister-in-law Gertrude said, "Oh, we're going to walk up to see the farmers." And I said, "Okay." So we walked up to his dad's farm, which was not very far, maybe a half a block in city blocks now. And they were all out doing sweet potatoes. And to do sweet potatoes, you're on your hands and knees and that, and dirty as a devil, with the mud and all. And I met he and his brother. In fact, the whole family was out there helping, even the married girls. They lived close to his folks after they married, and they would come up, and when his dad was harvesting some of the crops, they would help do that too. And so we met, and he said to me then, after we met, he said, "Would you like to go to the show sometime?" And I said, "Yeah, I guess I could." So that's how I remember us meeting. Now, how do you remember?
Well, I remember then, but then when I saw you, I said, "Boy, she's really pretty." Honestly, I said that,
well, now
"Boy,
let's
she's
not
really
spread it
pretty."
on.
No, and anyway, and then when we got in high school, we was juniors, I guess, because back in 1943, I was working at a tomato patch, and she walked over, and I asked her for a date, if she'd like to go to the show. I was older then, and I met her then, and from then on, you was going with another fellow then. And I said, "Would you like to just go to the show sometime?" Because he was in the service. And we went to the show. And then I took her to the prom,
Your senior prom.
senior prom. I took
At
her to
your
senior
school.
prom. And then she can tell you the rest
Well,
of it.
then we were
broke up
separated
a while.
for,
Separated for
I guess,
about-
a year or so. And then we got back together just about the same way. Me going down to my brother's house, and my sister-in-law and his sister always were trying to get us together. And so then he said, oh, aren't you going with so-and-so? And I said, no. I said, we broke up some time ago. And he asked me if I'd like to go out. And I said, yeah, I can go out.
I thought,
So
boy,
that's
I was
how-
in like Flynn.
So that's how we start dating.
Devil got out of me.
So you didn't go to the same school though?
Oh, no.
Oh, no.
He
She
went
to U City and I went to
Melville.
Oakville.
17 miles apart.
And Melville High School.
Grandpa, were you in the military?
No,
No.
I didn't
Because,
take.
you told me that.
Yes, right.
Because you didn't, yeah, you know. Pat wants to know, did you know right away that she was the one for you?
I told her when she was separated, I said, I'm going to marry her.
You did?
I said that to myself, I'm going to marry that girl. And
I didn't think it would last.
I'll tell you what, in fact, it was a big joke after we was going together, and when I asked her to marry her, everybody laughed and she said, I said, hey, let's just take a ride. She always, when we come out there, we'd take a ride, go to the show, and most of the time, a lot of times it was their mother and dad went. And we all went to the show, and this time I said, let's you and I just go someplace. I'm going to tell you something, Miriam. And I stopped in front of a old folks home.
No, an orphanage.
Oh, it was an orphanage.
Yeah.
And I pulled out this ring. And
That's
the
where
one
I
she's
got my
on her-
engagement ring. Mm-hmm. In front of an orphanage.
I asked her
Right.
to marry me.
Yep.
And she
Yep.
said, I sure would.
Yay.
I said, wow.
What did your brother say when you told him? Did he get married first, or did you?
We
get married
did.
first?
We did.
Yeah.
And he was home from the service, and then he was out of the service. And no, was he in service?
He was in service.
He was in service yet.
Yeah.
And so he was, we got married, and I'll tell you what, it was rough though.
How old were you when you met?
I was,
20. I was when we got married.
No, when you met.
we met, I was
I
only
guess
about 16, 17.
17 or 18.
Okay, and then you.
18, I went out I was a senior, we took her to the prom. I was 19, I think, because we got married when I was 21.
But
We were
then-
together a year and a half.
But then after you got out of school, you went to night school.
Night school,
Yeah, he worked as a machinist.
machinist trade.
I'm gonna cut you off there. I'm gonna change the
I'm gonna
tape.
change tape. They're not allowed to say anything while the people are talking. They have to wait to ask their question.
They have to
until-
hand up cards or something.
No, I mean they ask the questions, but they have to wait until the person's done
Oh,
because they don't want to hear
I mean, if
the other
it's
person in the background.
It's not on yet, is it?
no.
I just turned it on now.
Oh, did
Go
you?
ahead, say
That's
it.
right, I'll say it.
You can be mushy.
I'll say it.
If
Wow.
you want, you can wait because
Wow,
we
wow.
do get this stuff like that.
I better not play
Yeah,
with your
look
leg.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, that's not on yet, is
Yeah,
it?
it is on.
Oh, darn.
Keep your hands to yourself.
63 years.
Yeah.
Have at it.
After all, I paid $2 for it.
Yeah.
The price was $2.
Yeah, he keeps telling me he's not. He
I bought
hasn't
it.
gotten his money's worth yet.
How long have you been married then?
It'll
be-
be 63.
It'll be 63 years in February.
Uh-huh.
What year did you get married?
1947, February the 8th, 1947, 6 o'clock in the evening.
He still knows his wedding date.
Yeah.
October 12th.
Yeah, good job. How has your marriage been, and were there any bumps along the way?
It's been more than wonderful. Never a bump, except when we lost one child. It was a miscarriage
Yeah.
Was that before or after Linda?
After.
after Linda.
I
Yeah.
did not know that.
And then
Yeah.
it hurt for a long time. And that's why that's why it's so nice now, because we only had one grandson. And when Herb met Linda, and we ended up with 5 grandchildren, and their wives. Oh,
And now 2 great-grandchildren.
Yeah.
it was
We
one of
took-
the best things.
I'm
That-
going ahead.
well, you know,
Yeah, you're getting old.
Linda was single for about 27 years,
Yeah,
wasn't
she
honey?
didn't date or anything.
And I was always worried about her. And when she met Herb,
You're
it
getting
was-
ahead of the times.
oh no, I mean when she met Herb, because before that, it was really bumps along the road. It was rough. And I'll tell you, when Herb came down and then when we met you, boy, our life was complete. Because you know when you meet him with 4 children, you don't know what conflict you could have, how that family would be against this family, and after what we've been through. So we really did like him right away. And when he asked to marry Linda, she said, what did you say, no?
We
And
were
I-
down at the lake of the Lake of the Ozarks for the weekend, and Linda was home meeting Herb, and they called and asked if he could ask for her hand in marriage, and Al was on. He asked to talk to Al first, and Al said, "Oh yeah, that's fine," you know. And I could tell
said,
he was
"Sooner
real
the better."
jubilant. He was just real jubilant. And then he said he wanted to talk to me, and so I was real sober, and he had to go through the whole thing with me. And he said, "Could I?" And I said, "No."
She was
And
sitting-
the subject was just real quiet for a minute, you know.
But then when we,
I said,
You're joking?
well, we was
You said-
home
Yeah.
when we
Did you
met
have
him,
to tell him
honey.
you were joking?
We was in St. Louis when we met him.
no. Well, when we met him,
Yeah, when we met him then.
but not when he asked to marry her. We were down at Shirley's.
Yes, but when we came home, he asked us to
Okay.
marry him.
Okay, I'm
And
not
I
gonna.
said the sooner the better. And but we asked him about his sons, and we was really anxious to meet him, you know. And at that time, we met, I guess, Chris and Tina first, and then when we met all you guys, and you weren't married yet then. And then when we were invited to your wedding, well, I'll tell you what, that was
That was
wonderful.
really
we felt
nice.
so
We
important.
felt so much a part of the
We
family
felt
then.
so much a part of the family. And I'll tell you what, he couldn't have 4 nicer children. I'll tell you what, he can really be proud of his boys.
Yeah.
We are, I know, too.
Yeah.
Like our own grandchildren. Which they
All
are.
right, I'm going to go back.
Okay? Reverse
You are
it.
going to have to edit a little because you're going to have to put it in. No? You don't want to put it in order?
No.
How old were you when you had Linda? Well, you guys were the same age, so you could.
I was 22.
21. 22, I guess I was, yeah.
Thank you.
Because we were only married a little over a year. We got married on the 8th of February, and the following year on the 27th, Linda was born.
Yes.
Okay. Describe Linda as a child.
She was adorable.
Oh, she was a dream.
Don't give us the politically correct.
No,
answer.
I'm going to tell you exactly.
Dirt!
Okay,
when-
this is the dirt. Now listen to this. This is the
truth.
truth, but
This
it's
is
the
was
dirty
a bad
part.
moment.
Yeah.
Well, the first one, she went in the hospital for delivery. Had to go to the dentist, and I had a dry socket. And back then, that was rough. I'd go to the dentist in the morning, and in the afternoon, I'd go to the medical doctor because of the infection. And I went up there
Every day when you'd come up.
the delivery came up. Well, I saw Linda, and it looked like her forehead was so far back, and she didn't have much hair. And I thought, boy, I hope she changes, because she wasn't a very nice looking baby at first.
I thought she was.
And I'll tell you what, I'd come up there and she'd say, "Are you going to look at the baby?" I said, "Yeah." Did
I-
you think she'll change? She said,
Every
"Oh,"
day
she'd
he would say
"Oh,
to me,
she's
"Did
so
she
sweet."
change? Did she
I said,
change
"Oh, yeah,
much?"
she's really nice, honey." And I said, "Honey, you think she'll change a lot?" And she'd say, "Well, no." I guess that was
not.
bad for me, but she, you know, because Rich was born first, and he
That's
was
your
such
nephew.
a pretty baby. He was my nephew. And Jerry was, he looked like a monkey. But I'll tell you what, he was a tough little guy. I'll tell you, and I shouldn't be saying this, I guess, but I'm telling you the truth. And Linda wasn't that attractive. I said, well, anyway, until about the first week and a half, 2 weeks, I said, when we took her home, And I said, I'd be holding her. I loved her, and don't get me wrong. But I was hoping she'd get that forehead down a little bit. And then, boy, then she she couldn't have been any more beautiful.
Well,
All kidding aside, I was so proud of her.
Naturally, I thought she was beautiful. And I'm in the
Well,
hospital.
I was sick too, though. I didn't feel good. I
I'm
was
in,
with that damn dry socket. Oh,
quiet. I'm in the beep. I'm in the hospital, laying in bed, and every night when somebody would come up to you and say, "Did Linda change much?" I'd think he meant, more beautiful. I didn't know that he thought she was
I didn't
not
want to
very
look
attractive.
like her it was all forehead.
And he didn't tell me that he was going to the dentist and to the doctor and had this infection.
Oh, no, I was in pain.
He didn't want to bother, worry me. But
like, why is he so
has she changed much?
Yeah.
Well, she just have the birth squished head?
No,
Is that
well-
what
No,
had?
she really didn't.
No?
Her
he
hair
just
was
thought
so bad.
she didn't
far
have
back.
much hair.
No, she didn't.
But
It's not like me now.
But she was beautiful. Yeah, she looked like Al now.
Oh, okay.
Not really.
What was the worst trouble Linda got into as a child?
Oh, I know. We didn't tell you, but when Linda was born, she had two cousins that were born, two boys, to Al's brother and his sister. And all three of the children were born within 7 weeks. So it was almost like they were siblings. And we lived close together, so they played together all the time, and they just did everything together. And where you saw one, you saw the other. In fact, when they started kindergarten, the teacher told me later that she would get so tickled that they would come up and Linda would be the one to raise her hand. They had to go to the bathroom. So she'd take one of the boys on each hand and they'd all three go to the bathroom. They all three did everything at the same time.
Together.
And Linda was like, we called her the ringleader in the good things. The little boy that was the last one, the younger one, Jerry, that Al said he just didn't appear to be a beautiful boy.
He is a great.
But
was
anyhow,
a great kid. I love
he
that
was the
little guy.
one that no matter what happened, he was involved, and he was the instigator. And they all three were involved. But his older brother's son, Richard, was kind of frail, and he was shy. He was just shy.
Oh,
he
was really a good kid.
And Jerry would be the instigator.
Yeah, he would.
So one day we were all up at Grandma's for dinner. We would go up there almost every Sunday night for supper, and everybody would just bring whatever they had. It was just like a potluck thing. And
Jerry's a comedian, though.
kids were real quiet, and we wondered what they were doing. They were out in the barn playing, and at that time we had a black, I don't know what model was that.
It was
Pontiac, and it was black.
white wall tires.
And we thought it was a used car, but oh man, when I first saw that car, I thought, oh, if we only could own something like that, we'd really have it made. So all of a sudden we look out, and here the three kids are out washing our car with the oil water. Drain oil water from Al's dad's tractor. Well, I don't know which one of them got the worst spanking,
I looked at that
but
car.
Evelyn,
It was so shiny.
his sister, right away said, I know who did that. I know who's involved in that. Jerry, you did it.
But nobody got in trouble that time, though, because they thought they was doing me a favor.
Yeah.
And the white walls, you can imagine with that old drain oil on there. I looked at that thing and I said, boy, it's so shiny. But
she was.
I said, look, I said,
she was
"Kids,
scared.
Don't ever do that again. I said,
I really don't
was
think.
forcing it.
I don't really think you said it that quietly.
Yeah, the time I was upset is when they came over when we moved in our new house, and I just had raked the yard, sowed grass.
Oh, that's another time. The three of them.
We didn't have straw, but the three of them, we had a Cocker Spaniel, and I didn't see my dog, and I came out in the garage, and here the dog was in the garage. I looked at that dog and I looked at my yard. I said, what happened to my yard? Them three was out there chasing a dog on that wet yard with the grass. It looked like 100 horses came through my yard. I had to redo it. And I said, he said, in your garage. They had smeared mud
They washed the
all
dog.
over that Cocker Spaniel, and it start drying. And it looked like some place
Oh,
where
it
you
was a
could see their
mess.
fingers like that. It looked like that. But remember, they used to get pony terminus or ponytail or whatever. No, what kind of hair? What kind of hair?
Wait a minute, I'm thinking.
Dreadlocks?
Some kind of
Dreadlocks?
permanent. Some kind of a permanent.
Anyway,
Crokinole, it was real
anyway, I
kinky.
looked at that thing.
Cornrows.
Cornrows, yeah.
Anyway,
something
they had
like that.
all like twisted, and it start drying. Well, I had to take that dog out, and boy, he could hardly walk. He was stiff, and I said, "Don't ever do that to the dog." And right after that, Linda, Jerry and I got in trouble. I said, "You shouldn't get in trouble. Some of that's funny, but this wasn't too funny with the dog because you could just see out of his eyes." And anyway, I heard something, and Linda wanted to help me, and she swung the hammer over on my. We had a breezeway, and it went through my window under the. And I said, "Oh, that's okay, Linda. That just slipped out of your hand."
I'll tell you when I thought Linda thought she was going to get in trouble. We had our front yard, then the same house where we were living at the time the dog incident happened, was kind of terraced to the street. And down along the street we had evergreens, big evergreens planted, like 4 or 5 of them. And we had a riding lawnmower. So Linda was going to help Dad mow the lawn with the riding lawnmower. And all of a sudden she went over the water meter
She
thing.
put she thought she was putting the brake on. She pushed the clutch in, and it rolled, and it was
And-
still going.
The meter lid was, oh gosh, almost 2 feet in diameter.
Oh, 2
and
feet in diameter,
thick.
about
Well,
inch thick. And boy,
Surprisingly
I tell you what,
enough, it ruined the lawnmower. She was scared because she thought she'd get in trouble. Well, we were
it looked like a U-shaped the lawnmower.
glad that she didn't go down into the street. You know, when
Did you bust
the
the meter or no?
pardon me.
No,
meter
no,
break?
No,
but
no,
That lawnmower didn't look too good. And I just was a little upset about it, but I wasn't that upset.
Sounds like a goody two shoes to me. That seemed like an accident.
Yeah.
So Linda had to raise Michael basically on her own, but with your
Right.
help.
Mm-hmm.
Where you
Completely.
already said you were worried about her,
Right.
but how did that all come about? Because you were all then in a house together.
Oh yeah, we lived together. Yeah, we lived
She
together. In
stayed at
fact,
our
until Linda got married, she lived with us. They had a house when she was married. They had their own place, and then after
27 years.
after she had the baby, I guess I'd say she left her husband, and she came back and lived with us, and she'd been with us until Herb and Linda got married.
Now that's kind of a unique experience to have your grandson grow
Oh,
up with you.
Right,
he was
it's
just
almost
like my son.
almost like a son, and that's why to this
I couldn't
day
do
now.
anything. I couldn't go and get a grease job. He had to be with me.
That's why to this day now we're still
Right.
so close, and
Oh,
it's
yeah.
just hard. I think sometimes it's even hard for Linda to realize how close
We are with him.
the feeling we have for Michael because of having. Well, that was until he. How old was he?
Oh boy.
Well, Michael was still living with us when we moved
got
out in
married,
Pacific.
yeah.
And we were out there when he graduated from high school, and then we moved out there, and he was still with us. And then he only took a brief time got an apartment after he went into college, and that didn't last real long. So he called and wanted to know if he could come back home, and he was there then until he got married. So almost
Basically, you were his father figure.
right.
Oh yeah. I
right.
take him fishing and everything.
That's right.
That's why I was telling Michael and Caitlin. I'm not Michael. Ryan and Caitlin. I'd love to take him
Yeah.
fishing down there.
Yeah.
Because I think a boy is good with his grandpa,
Or his
great grandpa. Now with,
Or his great-grandpa, right.
Now I got two great grandson and a great granddaughter.
Did Michael ever? Did he ever give you guys grief? Like if you tried to discipline him and say, "Well, you're my grandparents, not my."
No.
He never did.
Never.
Good.
No.
The only time he got in trouble is and he didn't get in trouble for helping me. Like when we was out in Pacific, I was going to tar our basement, and I think he drove too fast on us or didn't use good judgment. But he said, "I'll get that stuff for you, Grandpa." So we got
5 gallons of tar.
He had 5 gallons of tar, and he put it in his. I gave him his car.
No, that was
Linda's.
Yeah.
Linda and I, his first car, the Toyota, and he put it in the trunk. Well, he took his car then and went and got my thing, my tar. Well, he went and stopped at, I think, to pick up some pizza
Sandwiches. Yeah.
or something. And he opened the trunk, and I looked in that trunk. Well, he said he went over a bump when he picked up the pizza. I opened that trunk, and one of them fell over and opened. All that tar was,
It was a mess.
in the trunk. Well, it took us forever and ever to get that out of the trunk.
Well, you had to
Then
buy a whole new liner.
Yeah, at my expense, I had to buy a whole new liner in the trunk. And getting that off the floor, I had to take gasoline and try to get all that off.
Oh, that was
And
something.
Would have done better to just
days
try.
and days and days. I'll tell you what, I had to get it out.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
could have had a little smaller trunk.
Because I didn't care if the trunk leaked on the bottom.
Okay, so when Linda told you that she met Herb and met him on the internet, what did you think?
Oh my gosh. That's my
Well,
friend.
that was one good thing Michelle did.
You got to be kidding. Well, you heard the story of how that went.
Kind of. Go
Okay.
ahead.
Okay. We were at the lake again. We went there every weekend. We were down at the lake, and Michelle and Michael called because we're really fortunate that Michael calls us almost every day, sometimes even twice a day if something comes up that he thinks we might like to hear or he thinks we should know. But anyhow, they called and they said something to the effect that if you get a call from somebody that lives out of town, we've put a, what do they call
Restriction?
it? No, not a restriction.
Limit how far to drive.
Bulletin.
No, it's bulletin. You put a personal ad.
A personal ad on the computer for you, Mom. And she said, "You did what?" And they told her, and she said, "I can't believe that you'd do that without even letting me know." And she said, "I've got restrictions." And they said, "Oh, what are your restrictions?" And she said, "Well, for one thing, he has to be a family man. For the second thing, he has to respect and want to be with my parents. And the third thing," she said, "he can only live no farther than 100 miles away." So they went along with that. They said, "Oh, that's no problem, So all of a sudden then Herb did call and they did talk back and forth. And when Herb first came down and we met, well, first we heard that he lived in Wisconsin.
Wisconsin? I said, my God.
I said, "That's more than 100 miles." And Linda said, "Well, just don't get ruffled." She said, "We'll just see how it works out." She said, "We might not even like each other or anything, So then when Herb came down, and apparently Linda went out and met him at the airport, well, guess who had to go along?
Mike and Michelle.
No, Michael didn't go along. I didn't know. Michael did not go along.
Oh, they met for dinner.
They went out, and then Michael called or something and started interviewing and wanted to make sure, or something like that. Linda could tell you more about it.
Yeah,
than I
that's
did,
right.
because
I
we
think I
wasn't
might
there.
have that a little bit mixed up.
But he came down, and he really impressed me.
Yeah,
And he stayed
We liked him right
in
over.
a motel.
we liked him right
And then
away.
he's, after the first time we met him, we really liked him, and we told him he might as well stay at our house.
But it was
And it was out
funny.
in Pacific. And so it was, and then we said 4 sons. I was wondering how they were, I guess anybody would wonder, 4 sons, and all that.
Right.
And, but then when we saw the pictures and everything, we was impressed. And when we met him, I'll tell you what, we fell in love with him. I'm not kidding you.
Well, then, too, I have to be perfectly honest, and I think Alan would agree. When we heard that he had been married for like 37 years and just getting divorced, we'd wonder, well, just what would go wrong after 37 years, That's a long time to...
After all you've been together.
Yeah. Well, I knew he was a family man if he could stay that
62.
long. I had 4 children.
No.
And he really impressed me.
So, yeah, that was really something. But then later he told me, he said that he had told the boys, because I don't know if it was Pat or one of the boys said to him, why would you want to get married? Why don't you just live together? And he said, your dad said something about, I don't think I just live together. And he said, I know Linda wouldn't do that. So he said, we're sure. And so they got married.
And here we all are.
I was really hesitant. I said, soon as possible. When he asked to marry her.
Yeah.
That's too funny. Have you suffered, well, I know you've suffered one hardship in life with the loss of a child. Are there any other hardships you lost?
No, just our folks.
When
Our families, yeah.
family passed
Yeah.
away.
We've
had
always been close with
very
all of our
close
families.
family. And when
Yeah.
her mother passed away, why,
Yeah.
I'll tell her mother and dad,
Yeah,
they
they
were
were
just
really
like my
nice.
own. I thought just as much as them as my own. They treated me so good.
Yeah.
In fact, it was unusual. They even had me listed in their will.
We traveled every year together. My
Yeah.
dad didn't like to drive. In fact, when we got married, his dad gave us a half-acre of ground, and we built our first house ourselves. And when that happened, my folks, like I said earlier, lived 17 miles away, and my mom and I were always close. They decided that they would sell their house and buy a lot from Al's dad and build a house down in Melville where we lived. So they ended up living across the street from us, similar to what we do now with Linda. Yeah. And I lost my train of thought. I forgot what I was
Well,
going
you
to say.
came down before you was married, though.
Huh?
You come down. We met you before you was married.
Yeah. Well,
No, I don't think so.
yes. No, we got married after Herb and Linda.
Yeah, you
Oh,
got
that's
married
right.
after,
Yes,
yeah.
but we met you
At the wedding, I think, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
I
At the
think-
yeah, at the
showers.
wedding.
and-
Yes,
It was at the wedding.
And you
Yeah.
were so friendly. You come up, gave me a big hug and that, and I said, "Boy," I said, "these people are." You were just like our grandchild then, really.
Yeah,
Oh, you are.
yeah.
And I'll tell you what. And you're.
Pat wants to say something.
Well, that question, as far as hardships, I know Donna used to tell me how they used to have powdered milk, and her
We went.
mom,
Yeah.
mom used to make their own clothes. Maybe financially, have you ever?
Yeah.
Oh, my
hardships
mom and dad.
too?
One thing they was so strict with us, and they would say always, "You don't have to have new clothes, but you have to be clean." New clothes. My mother worked on a farm, and she worked hard,
She did.
and she would never hardly walk, always run. But she would be out there every day with us, working on a farm. And when we was out in the summertime, we'd work on a farm with them, and she'd be out there,
Kept
go
the
home and
house.
cook.
It has to be a farm
Yeah.
thing.
And that-
Yeah.
It was the same way.
Yeah.
Grandma would make that. My mom, that house had to be spick and span.
Yeah.
And she'd say always,
Yeah.
and your shoes,
That's,
make sure them shoes are clean.
and shiny.
And right now, you don't have to have new
slippers on.
shoes. Yeah,
Pardon
my
me?
shoes here are not shine because they're corduroy. But anyway, that's one thing. And we had to eat. And she'd always say, "Eat that." And I never did I could never eat asparagus, but she'd say, "Eat. There's people over in China and that would be glad to have what you got." And we ate a lot of pork,
Ate a lot of vegetables, too.
a lot of vegetables.
I know what I was going to say about my mom and dad. My folks, when they moved down where we were living, they never went on a driving vacation because my dad didn't like to drive. He used to drive to work. He worked at Anheuser-Busch. He'd drive to work and back, and then we would go visiting and that. But to get in the car and go to Colorado or any place, we never did. Well, when we got married, Al decided that he liked to travel, and I did too. So we ended up, they would buy a new car like every other year, And Al and I and Linda would go on vacation with them. Al did the driving, and Dad furnished the car.
Well,
So
after I
it
got
worked out.
That worked out okay.
It worked
Yeah,
out
well,
fine
then
for us.
after
But
they
then
got older, I
You
had
got the new
cars,
car, and we still took
I
'em.
still take them because
Yeah.
they would never drive. So I thought
Yeah.
that's the least I could do because they
But
was
boy, we
just
went
like my own mother and
every
dad.
year for how many years? When Linda was a baby, we started traveling with her and my folks.
Her and I always went together.
Yeah.
So anyone who is watching this DVD knows knows their health history. What health issues have you had over the years? Because a lot of people don't talk about it, and then people don't know.
My health.
Yeah.
Well, that's the reason I got rejected. When I was just starting to walk, I had pneumonia and went in double pneumonia. They almost lost me. And I had to learn how to walk all over again. And that kept me out of the service because I had a scar on my lung from that double pneumonia. I had it bad. And even after the service, I went and had it checked, and never did bother me after that. They said it could have been maybe a spot of TB back in them days, because back then, you never knew anything. And then when I lost my grandma, I can still remember that. I was only about 12 years old. And I didn't know any of my grandparents. Now, it's so fortunate that we know, the kids know their grandparents. I think that's important. And now that with the kids knowing their great-grandparents, boy, I was fortunate. Not fortunate like they are fortunate to know their great-grandparents. That's why I would rather see them enjoy stuff now as when I'm gone.
But I think what she meant is your personal health after that.
Oh, well, I had pneumonia and I had, really the only thing I really had is that prostate cancer and the pacemaker.
Yeah. With your heart.
And she had asthma when she was...
Yeah, I had asthma real bad when I was carrying Linda. And it seemed like they always told me that your body changes, your system, every 7 years. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, but in my case, it worked for two things. As a young girl, I always got poison ivy or poison oak, really bad. And after 7 years, that left. And then
I'll take you out in the weeds and see if we get poison ivy now.
You'll take me in the weeds, all right. and then
Spit on a nice mattress.
behave. And then, like I said, I had the asthma, and then that left. So I'm fortunate then. But right now, the only thing I have is a bad back.
Right.
Yeah, bad back. And you had asthma bad though.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, while we're talking, you don't know how, like I say, you guys, the four boys and the girls now with their granddaughters, how you accepted us. You know, we feel like we know you for forever. Just like, actually, you're more than one of the family. You're part of us.
Yeah.
And when we go up to your house and stay with you guys, the way you put us upstairs, and you always include us. I mean, I'm surprised. I'm telling you, you don't know how we feel.
Right.
I'm gonna cry. Don't even. Are there any words of wisdom from your life experience that you would leave for us? For not just us, but anyone.
For little ones.
With you guys, I'll go each one, because we know you probably better than they have, you and Pat. And even to see you tears in your eyes, you don't. I damn near have tears in my eyes. I'll tell you seriously. We love you guys so much, and Pat, and you, and Chris and Tina. We enjoyed them so much.
Don't do that.
And
Don't
we want
do
to
that,
do
'cause
things
I'll
for
do
you
that
guys.
too.
And with
I always do. Linda.
and
Yeah.
even with Brian, and we don't see him that much, or with Scott, and now with Chrissy and her boys.
Well,
But we enjoyed when they stayed with us down there. I had fun
we
with
had
the
a
kids
nice time.
down there.
Yeah.
And I think this is what it's all about.
I feel
You
sorry
need
for
to-
families who have arguments all the time.
Yes.
And siblings go one way and, the parents another.
And
It's
advice that
heartbreaking
you
to
two,
me.
I'm so happy you love your child like you do, and that he is doing
Yeah.
so good. I mean,
He's running out of
and
tape.
this is honestly.
Gosh, we're
you
running out. See,
ended the
we're
tape,
wearing him
put in
out.
every night. You guys are in our prayers.
Right.
In my prayers every night. You and praying to God
The
that
family.
he could talk. Is it over now?
No, they're
Good.
killing me.
So, no, and every night I pray that.
Tissue. Oh, stop.
Every night I pray that.
That is not
that-
going to be on there.
that
No, we
Chris-
could take that out, can't
that
we?
little, that little Ryan, that he can talk and everything else, because I know you were suffering, and the job you guys are doing with him is just outstanding.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
And it is. And I'll tell you what, nothing would be
You're-
happier
you're
if we
good
lived
parents.
closer to you guys,
Yeah.
and you guys, we could visit back and forth and come down and stay with us sometime. And stay. I know. You guys accepted the two old
are
people. Two old people. After all, I'll be 83, and you guys are accepting us like you do. It's unbelievable. And stay with us. And
I need a tissue.
if you don't, and if
I
you
don't even have one
if you
either.
don't enjoy us, act like you do.
We do enjoy it. Don't move
And-
yet. We're not done.
Oh,
Okay.
That's pretty easy, but
thank you.
Ow.
and the way you treated us at your wedding.
Knock it off.
Okay.
Him, not you. Him. Him. Because he's. How do you feel about each other?
Oh, gosh, I can't stand him.
I feel like maybe I should knock her out once in a while, but I might get sued. No. All kidding aside, when you hear all this bad stuff in the radio, but is this figure like this? You're not two, you're one. When they say when you get married,
Yeah, that's true.
you become one. And if I hurt her, I'm hurting myself. And that's what I feel. I'm,
Okay.
And I'll tell you what, you two are made each other.
We are.
You two are made for each other. You really
Yes.
are.
He's
Uh,
gonna make me cry again.
And
What?
He's gonna make me cry.
Nope.
oh,
Stop.
yeah.
Okay,
But,
nobody watching this wants
But
to see me.
I think,
we
really, when you help somebody and you go home, you can't help feel good about yourself. And why would you hurt yourself? Right?
Right.
Oh boy, I'd like to just give you a big smack. Right now.
Okay, I got one last thing. Grandpa, give me a bat crap.
That's what I say. We're playing cards on it, and I get a bad card. I say, oh, bat crap. Oh,
I'm done. Do you have anything
oh,
else?
doggy.
I think that's it. Did you?
I
Pretty much, yeah.
Hit
We
everything
pretty-
I want to thank you guys.
Oh, no, you know what I didn't have? What was your first car?
Oh my!
First
I
car,
know,
33
34 Chevrolet.
Or 34 Chevrolet.
What was
And
your
we-
favorite car?
We bought it together. We had to pool our money in
Oh,
order to
yeah.
afford this 34 Chevrolet.
How much did it cost?
$350.
And we both had to put money on it.
Yep. That's right.
I'm still paying on our engagement ring.
What was your favorite car?
Favorite car? I guess is the one I got now.
Yeah.
And the one I got in Florida.
What car?
Buick.
Oh,
Buicks.
and one of the favorite cars, I had that 65 Mustang.
Yeah, but that wasn't yours. That was Linda's.
That was not Linda's. A 65 lime
Mustang?
green Mustang. Miriam, I drove
we're
it
gonna
back
have an
and
argument.
forth. I drove it back and forth to work all the time.
You
Her
asked
first
Linda.
car was an Oldsmobile.
Yeah, ask Linda. Ask her. I know I'm right.
I bought it for her.
Yes, when she graduated.
Well, technically it's yours then if you bought it for her.
Well, that's right, but you bought it for her. What?
Well, I bought Michael's car too. Linda gave me a discount on it, but I bought it.
No, you're wrong there. The first
Why did I
argument.
sell it then? Trade it in.
Well, because she traded in on a different car. Come
Well,
on.
that's I think that's the first thing we disagreed on.
I I think so.
This is good TV.
This is good.
I
TV.
think that the only car I bought anybody, I paid for Linda's
Where's the
Oldsmobile,
phone?
but the
When we
yeah,
go over,
where's the
I'm
phone?
going to ask her.
Okay,
No, I'll
and
ask her when we go
I'll
over.
bet you
We need to get an answer on
I
this?
can't say this,
Okay.
but
That was the
we-
car you liked, whether it was yours or not.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
your favorite car.
that Mustang was a good car. But I guess my favorite one was now my two Buicks. The Lincoln we had, I had 4,000 miles. I had to get a new engine in it, and I had a big argument with the dealer, the service manager. Pulled in there, and I was in the garage. All of a sudden, I bing, 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 bing. I said, "Wait a minute, that noise shouldn't be in there." I took it there. He said, "Oh yeah, I hear that." He said, "I think what it is, it could be your connecting rods or something." He said. I said, "Look, you're not supposed to think. You're supposed to know." And they ended up putting a new sharp lock in it. And I drove that, but I say the 55. I mean the Buicks I had was some of my favorite car.
Do you ever go through like the midlife crisis that they call it, where you just, I'm going to buy a convertible, or some souped up car?
Dude, something
like
crazy.
Yeah, I bought when I bought that one 455 engine, I was on a vacation down there, and he said, "Well, this thing you get up and run." He said he likes it. It was a 2-door hardtop Oldsmobile, blue. Boy, it was a beautiful car. We bought that as the first big car we bought, and we was going. It was raining. We was going over to get some pick up you guys who was buying some crabs. He was crab hunting,
that was
and
down
we
there.
fished out there. We had 2 crabs. We went over, and Emil and I was going over, and I put that thing down, and I was going 100 miles an hour on a 2-lane road, and it was raining, and we hit a mud thing, a little water ditch. It was like a U. And I couldn't get the thing started because I was drowning out, I guess. And finally it started, though. And he said, "Boy, this sucker does go." He said, "Let's slow down." He said, "You're scaring me half to death." But anyway, that was a good car. But I always took good care as I greased them, oil changed them every 1,000 miles, except these here nowadays say you don't have to. In fact, Herd told me it's silly to grease them, oil change them, I mean, every 1,000 miles. But I took it for
Are
an
we done?
overhaul one time, and he said that's the cleanest engine they ever did see.
Anything you can think of that you want to tell people about that we didn't cover?
Keep your cars clean. I can't stand driving. I can't stand driving
Oh
a
my
dirty
gosh.
car.
Oh, yeah, I want to say one more thing.
Oh,
The Mustang was Linda's.
no.
Caller.
And I do want to say one thing. I really thank you for doing this and
For the
loving-
love we
I
feel
just want to
toward
thank
you.
you for
That's
loving
right.
us.
Is he
Yeah.
just trying to get me
Oh,
crying?
no, I'm not. I won't say
Hey,
that.
Turn it down.
Oh, here's a
call
phone.
Linda.
Sit next to him.
Yeah.
Sit next to him, Don.
Well, I'm not going to sit next to him because I'm
Yeah.
crying.
Miriam, no, wait. Leave.
I'm just going to ask her a question.
Whose car was this?
I'll ask her, who owned the 57 Mustang?
And she'll say, "You naturally." That's partial. Here's our first argument for a long time. That's going to be bat crap, is right? Or bull.
Herb, this is me. I need to talk to my daughter for a second, please.
Ask
Is
her
she
first.
available?
Ask her first. If he ever knows
Okay,
what me
just a
talking
sec.
about, who owned? Ask Herb who owned that 50, that 65. Quit hitting me on the stomach. You make me throw up. Ask Herb.
Just a minute.
Ask what car was my favorite car,
Wait a minute. Just a minute.
and see what she says. His or
I'm going to ask Linda who owned the 57.
no? Just ask her what my favorite car was.
65.
65
Mustang.
Mustang.
Hello, I have a question for you. What was Dad's favorite car?
His black. Oh, what car was it? Was it there?
What about the green?
64 and a half Mustang.
64 and a half Mustang.
Who owned it?
Wait. Wasn't that my favorite car, Linda?
Yes,
Okay, whose car was that?
that was Dad's and mine.
Oh, Dad's and mine. Okay, you just solved the problem.
Toss-up.
Dad said it was his, and I said, we gave that to
No.
Linda when she graduated.
No, I
And
didn't.
he said, no, I didn't.
But I let him borrow it.
Oh, she let you borrow it.
It was his, but he
Boy,
let me
that,
borrow
you know,
it.
that's,
It was yours.
that was,
What?
let me talk to her.
He taught me to drive on the English Ford. It's just
You
like-
taught her to drive on the English Ford.
Yeah, and she ran over Grandma's tree.
Yep.
Yep.
I mean,
No,
bush.
this is about you.
This
not
is,
me.
well, he's just bringing up all kinds of stuff.
No, I am.
I asked.
That was her. She started all
Okay,
this
is that
crap.
little Ryan I hear in the background?
We're playing
Oh, you're playing?
Bull
Oh,
crap, honey.
cards.
Oh, you're playing cars?
Honey,
Okay, we're having a big argument on this
no,
television.
Miriam, let me talk to her.
Just a minute.
Linda,
they're playing cars.
Will you please settle this argument? Don't give me no crap, honey. Seriously, who owned that? Whose car was that Mustang? Why you say mine and yours? Who got the money when who traded it in on a new car?
Probably you, because you didn't want me to have it anymore.
What do you mean?
You can hear it.
Did she said me?
She said probably.
Yours because you didn't want me to have it anymore. You wanted me to keep it because you didn't want me. Oh, honey, Mom bribed you. I know she tricked you. Yeah. What do you mean? I heard her talk to you about it.
Not before now.
I think you're both full of bad stuff, you know. Here, talk to your daughter.
Okay. Okay, I have to hang up.
I don't want
Goodbye.
him to come over for stew.
All right, why don't we say something all happy and
No,
nice?
they're being silly.
Yeah.
They're being silly.
We are being silly, but it was really.
Linda said it was yours
And her, that's right.
So
Yeah.
you must have bought it and let her drive it.
I have to drive it once in a while. But
To college.
do we? No, we
Okay,
didn't
try
have
to get along. Kiss and make up.
Okay. You're wrong. Oh, thank you, guys.
I know I'm right.
I'm gonna give you a hug too.
Oh, you're still connected?
Oh, you're still.
I know I'm right. Hey, you're still hooked up, Al.
dropping the microphone.
Oh,
You're going to ruin the
am I
equipment.
plugged?
All right, yeah, we're
Yeah.
all done.
I hope this went all right.
Oh, it went great.
Interview.
Wait, you have to untuck your shirt to get this out. I'm not going in there, Grandpa.
I'm just rolling on this bridge.
Unhook
I
it.
already unhooked it. So
Oh, you did?
yeah.
I wanted you to go up to get it.
No, I said I wasn't going to.